Lawyers of Reddit, what is the most outrageous case someone has asked you to take? Had a case where a man refused to pay rent because his apartment smelled terrible and was making him sick. His landlord tried to evict him. A few days after taking the case and before his first hearing, the ceiling in his bathroom collapsed. Turns out some plumbing wasn't connected and his ceiling walls had been filling with poop for months. The landlord settled pretty quickly after that. A woman called saying that she had a product liability suit involving animal crackers she gave to her daughter. I was thinking it was going to be something to do with food poisoning and keep listening. She explained that when she looked at the crackers, it looked like the monkey was holding its penis. It was a banana. This woman was mortified and ashamed. She said she told all her co-workers and they were very shocked and uncomfortable. I wanted to tell her she was nuts and that they were probably freaked out because you were talking about animal cracker dicks. A prospective client once called me to ask if I did personal injury cases because she felt a fall coming on. I remember a guy called me and wanted to take action against the post office. He had received a letter from them saying that they would no longer deliver packages to him as he was never appropriately dressed when he opened the door to accept them. I remember being nervous about asking him to elaborate. As a public defender, I defended a grown man accused of stealing magic cards from Walmart. There was an hour-long security video meticulously showing, from dozens of angles, that he was picking up sets of cards, unwrapping them and discarding the wrappers around the store. He insisted that he was innocent and we actually went to a jury trial instead of securing a plea deal. It took the jury 8 minutes to convict him and the judge laid into my client telling him that he was the worst thief he had ever seen. I forgot the best part. At one point in the trial I had to spend 45 minutes explaining to the judge what magic cards are. He couldn't understand why anyone need more than one deck. First case out of law school, three-way custody battle between a dad who was in and out of jail on drug charges, mom who was an escort, and grandfather who had a library of child pornography on his phone. Our client, mom, was also paying her lawyer by trading services. Mom ended up winning custody on the condition she stopped being an escort. There's a lot of them. I've been asked to evict a ghost. I actually did that one. I regularly get phone calls promising to make me a millionaire if I'll sue the police. There's the completely guilty ex offender sitting in jail who wanted me to handle his appeal under circumstances that would have resulted in him being released, then immediately charged and convicted of a more serious crime. So many. Family law attorney here. I just had a custody case go back to court over eyeglasses. My client didn't like the glasses her ex bought the kid. So stupid. I want to go back to criminal defense. Gang homicide cases had nicer people to deal with than family law. Lawyer in a small town here. I mostly do estate planning, probate, old people stuff, etc. I have a client that sued his ex-wife for not selling the house after the divorce as she was supposed to. Judge held her in contempt and asked what he wanted my client to do, and he had her thrown in jail. They are both nearly 80 years old. The client also has something valuable buried on his property for his grandchildren after he dies. I have a sealed letter in my desk that he pays me a goodly sum each month to hold and give to his grandson when the old man dies. I had a potential client come in and say that he wanted to sue his uncle for murder. Setting aside the fact that you can't sue someone for murder, I asked him who did his uncle murder. He replied me. I turned the case down. Ashton Alep. I do firearms law, and this is one that happens about every 3 months. So, I have this invention, and I want you to write a legal opinion confirming that it is legal. See, it is designed to protect from lead exposure when you go shooting. Lead is a serious health risk. Does this invention involve a tube that fits on the end of your gun and contains a series of baffles to capture the vented gases? Yes, sir. You have invented the suppressor, which is a prohibited device here in Canada. While working at a plaintiff's employment firm, 2 memorable consults came in. 1. Guy gets fired for being late too much. Wants to sue for discrimination because he has a sugar addiction and needs to stop at 7-11 for a big gulp before his shift begins. As a result, he usually ends up missing the bus. 2. A woman comes in. She was a bus driver and was terminated during her probationary period. She had 3 accidents in 6 weeks. She wants to sue for discrimination because she has anxiety and a therapy rabbit. All the while sitting at the conference room table petting the therapy bunny. Edit. Grammar typos. A woman comes in. She was a bus driver and was terminated during her probationary period. She had 3 accidents in 6 weeks. She wants to sue for discrimination because she has anxiety and a therapy rabbit. All the while sitting at the conference room table petting the therapy bunny. They're discriminating against me just because I'm clearly unfit for the job. My parents are both attorneys. Most recently, their batch T crazy neighbor asked my dad to serve as his attorney in a slip and fall suit. Full stop. Full stop. Against my parents. He had come over unannounced and uninvited at 6 AM on a snowy morning and fell down our driveway. My dad was the one who helped him up and called the ambulance on his behalf. The next day, crazy neighbor dropped off legal documents in my parents' mailbox for my dad to look over to see if he had a case. Full stop. Full stop. Against my dad. And this is why I hate people. Years ago, I had someone ask me, informally, whether he should sue the Jerry Springer Show because they turned his family down as guests. Yeah. Out of there real quick. I worked on a custody dispute between a mother and grandmother, where both sides were absolutely outraged by the other's claims. The mother was very upset that she was alleged to have been a stripper. I was a prostitute. But I was never a stripper. The grandmother in return was furious that she was alleged to have 21 cats in her 2-bedroom apartment. We only have 17 cats. How dare she flat out lie and say that we have 21 cats. The child ended up living with the father in a different state. It dodged 2 bullets. A company wants me to patent their competitor's slogan, arguing it has no trademark registration. When I explained them a slogan is not protectable by patent, that slogans cannot be deposited for trademark registration, and that patents and trademarks are 2 very distinct forms of monopoly. They asked me apply for a generic intellectual property over the slogan. I then proceeded to explain there is no generic intellectual property, and that although there would be ways to protect that subject matter, not every IP right is acquired through registration. This means, as I explained, the competitor holds protection over the slogan. Moreover, I explained that their request is majorly unlawful. They did not budge. I ended up explaining them about ethics and being very firm about refusing to honor their request. Our contract is now rescinded. Edit. Clarification. Defended a guy who sent poop through the mail to his ex-GF from state prison. I don't know how it got past prison officials, but it did. And he didn't deny sending it. However, we went to trial because he wanted me to argue that the poop was expressive speech, and thus protected by the First Amendment. We lost. TL. DR. ST case. We lost. A lady once wanted me to sue her dentist because her son's mouth hurt the day after dental surgery. When I was working in small claims for the court system, I had a man call me who wanted to sue his ex-girlfriend for the 12 years of cigarettes he had bought for her. Also had someone accuse the courts of taking and keeping as evidence the blue energy tube the aliens had given her for safekeeping. I had a private client with a criminal family court matter. He was charged with sexual harassments for sending dick pics and videos of him masturbating to his ex-wife. The client swore to me, in private, that it was baseless and that his wife was lying. He never sent a dick pic in his life. Discovery ended and my office received an entire file folder filled with my client's dick pics. Of course, my client couldn't just take a picture of his dick, it was full body shots, with his face in frame. Sometimes my client was wearing a baseball cap. Sometimes he was wearing sunglasses. But without fail, he was always jacking it. To quote Superbad, it was a dick treasure chest. I had to yell at him, privately, because it was an unbelievably flagrant lie to me. I told him he needed to trust me as his attorney. After this confrontation, he only asked one question. How many people saw my dick? My answer was, it should have been 3 or 4. It was probably closer to 50. I work as a paralegal for a small but really old law firm in Texas. I work with a few attorneys who handle estate planning and wills. This man was a doctor. Died. He was worth about $2. 000. He wasn't very wealthy. And we also handled a lot bigger cases. But he had 5 kids and an ex-wife. After he divorced, he came out as gay and moved in with his partner. After he died, his will stated that his house and money would go to his partner. His kids tried to argue it. We ended up going through mediation. His partner actually requested a paternity test on the father's frozen specimen. It took a lot of legal pull and bullshit. But in the end, it turns out all 5 kids were not actually related to the now deceased father. The partner got to keep the estate. Not a lawyer, but worked in a law firm. Had a potential client who needed to access something on a high shelf. When she was at work, instead of using the step that was provided, she took it upon herself to take her shoes off, then stand on her chair to reach the shelf. She forgot about her own shoes on the way down and tripped over them. She tried to blame her employers. That's not how it works. Live. There was another woman using a vacuum cleaner in her own home and she tripped over the lead. When we asked who it was in particular, she intended to sue, as there was nothing wrong with the vacuum cleaner and no actual injury. She became confused and confessed she did not know. She just thought she could claim from someone. Pretty tame examples, but amusing at the time. Some people just need saving from themselves. Edit. This was in the UK. For all those wondering. A fellow came to me in 1996 and said he was able to stop his grand mal seizures by smoking pot. He was a very difficult, sometimes abusive hothead with a long history of criminal cases. He had no money. He wanted to make pot legal in Canada. Many lawyers had already turned him away. I took it on. Very reluctantly. It was obviously a complete long shot. But I was young and ambitious. George Soros Foundation learned about the challenge, funded the case and provided some experts. A few years later, and too many hours, arguments, tears and sleepless nights to count. Damned if he didn't win. His case became the national template for medical marijuana in Canada. The clients wanted full legalization, so he was disappointed with the result. Oh well. I tried. Not a lawyer, but my uncle once had a client trying to sue Sears for distributing pornography to minors because he caught his 12-year-old son masturbating to the lingerie section. The Sears catalog. The golden years of print pornography. Kids these days are spoiled with the internet. Back in my day we had to work for the jerk. Probably will be buried, but I defended a guy accused of rape. His defense was that the girl had been a one-night stand who had become obsessed with him and had broken into his house, found a used condom in the bin that he had ejaculated into and stole it, and had then smeared semen all over herself, punched herself in the face and had thrown herself into a bush on purpose before going to a hospital. She was doing this to get back at him for not wanting to be with her. I explained that a jury might not believe this, but that I would put the case if he wanted to. He was duly convicted. Lawyer and dog enthusiast here. During law school I had the opportunity to work under a special license for the public defender in my city. Like in most cities, they were grossly understaffed and overworked. So I had the potential as a 2L to do an actual misdemeanor trial. The client that I had to accept was a woman who killed 2 puppies by neglect. She left them in a cage outside in February, with no food or water for weeks until they perished. Then she called animal control to get them. I couldn't look at this person without feeling utter disgust. It did not help that she had a mustache and a dead tooth. When I asked her why she waited so long to call animal control, thinking that she should have called before they were dead so they could have been saved, she replied, "I don't like dogs." I had to defend this woman as the first person I ever legally represented. She took a decent plea. When it was concluded, she thanked me and tried to shake my hand. I just gave her a look and left. Criminal prosecutor here. Patrol officer pulled over a driver for some traffic violation. I think failure to signal. After a heated roadside exchange where the driver initially refused to turn over her license, she ultimately relented and thrust the license with undue force into the officer's outstretched hand. The cop charged her with aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer. When asked to justify his actions, he stated that people need to learn to respect the police. We dismissed the charge, apologized to the defendant, and told the cop to never bring us something like that again. I can't recall if Internal Affairs was notified. I work with the police every day, and the majority of them are good people. This guy was a shitty. My brother, fresh out of law school, was asked to defend the fraternity being sued for defecating in the dorm room of the pledge who did not finish his bid to be a brother. He called the co-defendants and the plaintiff the poopers and the poopy respectively in our group text. I'm not a lawyer, but as a child I was taken into foster care and then returned to my father's custody, so he had custody of me from ages 4-16. When I was 22 he tried to sue me for the costs involved in caring for me for that time, saying that he had no obligation to take custody of me and had only done so to save me from foster care. It was obviously dismissed and I don't talk to him anymore. Criminal defense social worker at a legal aid organization. I had a client who ran 3 red lights on a very busy street, knocked over a police officer, drove up on the sidewalk, forcing people to jump out of the way, and was finally dragged out of his car in a parking lot. He wanted us to refer him to a civil attorney to sue the city because an officer was too rough with him during his arrest. I mean, I get it. They were probably rough with him. Police brutality in my city is real. But good luck with that lawsuit. A friend of mine worked as a lawyer on what is known in Germany as the Cat King case. Basically A and B convinced C that there is a cat king about to destroy mankind unless C killed E as a sacrifice to appease the king. Standard preface of, not a lawyer but I know someone. I met somebody who went to law school and was still friends with a lawyer for a group that wanted to hunt endangered animals. They paid the lawyer to look for ways to legally do it and to protect them if anybody brought a lawsuit to them. Edit. Okay. I am going to reformat the anti-PETA statement because, as most people have pointed out, the well-known irony of PETA's mission. Edit II. I am going to delete the PETA statement because it is seeming to detract from my initial comment. Neighbors sued a woman for getting murdered and her house burned down because the fire spread to their house and they needed to do roof repair. Their argument was that her behavior of taking homeless people into her house to give them a meal and some clothes was recklessly negligent. Thankfully, I was working defense on that case, but they had a lawyer, so somebody took that case. I think they just wanted some insurance settlement money, but we took it all the way and they took our $998 offer to settle for nothing the week before trial. Edit. Oh, I forgot. They also threw an emotional distress claim in there for having to see her body being taken out of the house. Ianal. But I briefly worked a law firm. A client came in and wanted to sue her employer for wrongful termination. She was saying that he fired her because he was black and that he, and his co-owner wife, made her life miserable. One of her allegations was that they would start calling her at 4 AM and not stop until 11 PM almost every day. We got her cell phone records as well as the owner and his wife's. There were a couple of early late calls, but nothing as endemic as she was saying. She also kept a journal that was only about 4 entries long and just happened to start on the day she said they had a meeting to fire her. My boss couldn't decide whether or not the woman was lying or it was one of those things where you feel like it happens all the time, but it really doesn't. Either way, She decided not to continue with the case. The ex-client said she'd find someone who could help her and disappeared. Edit. Yes. Yes. It says I anal. You are all very funny. Detective here. Not a lawyer. But once had a man want me to charge his wife's lover with sexual assault because she was mentally coerced into having an affair. I told him that Jedi mind tricks don't meet elements of the offense. He filed a complaint against me which was unfounded. Our best of legal advice. I once had a 19-year-old potential client attempt to sue the doctor model who circumcised him. He reasoned that the reason for his below average size was due to the doctor taking off too much when he was a baby. Needless to say, this was rejected before we would have reached the point of requesting photos. Interned at a law office. Client came in to consult with my boss. They owned a horse farm in the country and their sister had ridden one of the horses off the farm into swampy boggish territory off the beaten path. The client was dead set on suing the sister for decreasing the value of her horse and wanted to sue her for $500 of damaged goods. My boss just kind of sat there and stared at her. Being the good guy he is, he told her, "Miss, it's going to cost you more than $500 in legal fees. You'll be better off doing this in small claims court. But I wouldn't recommend that either, as the judge will likely throw out the case." The client was vehement in suing her sister in court with an attorney to teach her a lesson that she can't just ride off on other people's horses without permission. Boss told her there was no way in good faith that he could assist with this lawsuit.